In this next video about tenths, we're going to look at more about how they work and how the relationship between tenths and decimals works, and even percentages. So just very, very quickly, I'll jot down something for you to have a look at. If you look at, say, 1/10, for example, we can say that it is the same as 0.1 and it's the same as 10%. Now you've sort of seen this equivalent thing before. We've done it with halves and other numbers. So for example, 1/2 is the same as 0.5 is the same as 50%. The good news is with tenths it's even easier. You can see that 1/10, that 0.1 is like 10 backwards. And 10% makes sense. The reason a percentage looks like more is because when you do a percentage, you chop everything into 100 first. So 1/10 is the same as 10%. Now here's the cool thing. It also works if you have more in the numerator. So if you had 3/10, it would very easily convert into decimals. You could say that's 0.3 and then 30% as well. So that's a fundamental piece of understanding that's really easy to get your head around when you're dealing with tenths. On this side of it, where the first challenge is to put these numbers here on the number line. Now the first one's been done for you, 7/10. You can see 7/10 fits there. If I start from here, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7/10 makes sense to go there. Then 0.4. Now it's not a fraction, it's a decimal, but it behaves in the same fashion. So 0.4, as we learnt just before, is the same as 4/10. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.4 fits there. Now what if the number's a bit bigger? Say it's, look at this one here, 1.9. Well, it's the same as 19/10. Isn't it? Same sort of thing. So it's an improper fraction, so I can start with the one that's more than 1. All I have to do is count up 9 from here. In this case it's going to be here, so this would be 1.9. Nearly 2 makes sense. So see if you can place these on the number line here. Remember that this is not 10, this is just the space between 0 and 1 chopped into 10 places. You've seen this kind of chopping up happening before. If you have a ruler, the spaces between the big marks there are chopped into 10. And in this case it's got like a 5mm gap as well, but you see it all the time. We talk about decimals and fractions interchangeably when it comes to 10 because it's a very useful way to think about numbers. So rulers are a place you see it. You also might see it if you go to buy a drink or something. So for example, you might go to the supermarket and get yourself a lovely big, those bottles that are shaped like this. And maybe it's got your favourite drink in it and it'll say whatever your favourite drink is on the side, and it'll have a number like 1.5 litres, right? The 0.5 means that it is another type of fraction. So you've got 1 whole litre plus 5/10 of a litre, or half, and that's where that sort of half a litre comes in there, 0.5. So it's a decimal number that we understand and use all the time, right? I'll show you that there. Sorry, I wasn't sure I was in the screen there. So very straightforward stuff. Take your time. Have a good close look at it. Look out for those improper fractions. And sometimes, I think you can do that. I'll just leave you with that. And I'm just going to pause for a second while I change batteries in the camera. In the next section here, we start to do some subtracting of fractions with the denominator as the same. So we're talking about tenths. So If the denominator is the same in both fractions, just keep it. It's very, very easy. So all of these here are addition and subtraction with fractions that are all tenths. Now the number line here is designed to help you figure out where they go from. So for example, the question here is 5 tenths take away 2 tenths. That's the example question here. The answer is 3 tenths, and you can see if you start with 5 and you leap back 2, you end up with 3 tenths. It's very, very easy to do, remembering that once you've got your head around the fact that they're fractions, the arithmetic that you do is very, very easy. So 6 tenths take away 3 tenths. This is easy as 6 take away 3. I'm going to be left with 3 tenths. How would it look on the number line? Well, if I started with 6 tenths here, 6 tenths, you can see that's, I know there's 5 there, so I've gone 6, count back 3, 1, 2, 3, end up with 3 tenths again. So those ones are very straightforward. Look out for these ones here where there's an improper fraction, because you're starting with 12 tenths, which would be here, right? 12 tenths more than 1, and you're subtracting 4, so you're going to actually go back below 1 again. So take 12, take away 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to end up with 8 tenths there, right? Take your time, have a look. Now, the only time it gets a wee bit tricky here is that sometimes it says, what is 1/2 plus 1 tenth? Now you see on the number line the half is marked. So if I started there, I can see that half is the same as 5 tenths. So really it's saying, what is 5 tenths plus 1 tenth? Easy, 6 tenths. So have a little play with those. They're not difficult to get your head around. Down the bottom here, one last task on this sheet. The trick here is to convert either fractions into decimals or decimals into fractions. Now, if you can understand this timeline up here, you can do this very, very easily indeed. The first example, and we've already talked about this one here, 3 tenths is the same as 0.3. Very good, easy, no problem. So therefore 5 tenths must be the same as 0. Did you figure that out? Here, 12 tenths is more than 10. 10 out of 10 or 10 over 10 is the same as 1, right? 10 tenths. So 12 tenths is more than 1. So the fraction, the decimal, beg your pardon, it's going to be very similar, isn't it? It's like writing 12, but remembering to put my decimal in the middle. It's almost as if the answer is in the question. Now down here, 0.6 is the same as how many tenths? Well, again, the answer is really right in the question. 0.6 is the same as 6 tenths. This is going to end up with an improper fraction, 1.7. I've got one whole thing plus 7 tenths. It's going to be 17 tenths. It's almost just like taking the decimal away. Very, very easy thing to do. Okay, this part of the video is talking about more about tenths of larger numbers. So we're going to use our place value houses quite a bit for this one because it really, really clearly shows you how it works. So the example here is if I had 70 and I said, well, what is 1/10 of 70? It's the same as dividing it by 10, so long as I'm talking about a unit fraction, right? So this is the first part of what we're doing here. So 1/10 of 70 is 7. It's as if I've moved this whole 70 across the place values over this decimal here, and I'm left with 7.0. Now, I don't need to, here's the cool trick with this, I don't need my 0.7, I can just say it's 7. And in fact, if I'm dividing by 10 or saying 1/10 of, all I have to do is cover the 0 and I've got my answer right there. It is very, very easy. So for example, if I had 1/10 of 80, I can just hide the 0 there, and it gives me a clue straight away. 1/10 of 80 must be 8. Very, very easy. Sometimes these resemble some of the ones we did on the earlier page. 1/10 of 3. It's the same sort of thing. If I had 3 here and shifted it across the decimal, it would suddenly become 0.3. So that's a very easy one for you to figure out. And the last one I wanted to show you, these ones here, when they're over 100, it's easy still. You just cover that 0. What happens though if you've got something like 1/10 of 75? Well, you do the same process. Say if I had 75 here and then moved it across by dividing it by 10, the 7 goes there and the 5 goes there. Make sure the decimal goes in. I've shifted it across the decimal. My 75 becomes 7.5. It's as if I've just written down 75 and shoved a decimal in the middle. In practice, a very quick way of doing it, but what you're really doing is shifting it across those place values. The next set of questions are based on that. You are shifting this number across. So what I would do if I were you is say, well, what is 1/10 of 52? So important note here, of and times mean the same thing. So if you see 1/10 times 52, it's the same as saying of 52. Okay, just so we're clear on that one. So what is 1/10 of 52? Well, first thing I'd do is write down 52 and then say, well, if the decimal point was there, because I'm essentially dividing it by 10, move them across. Now it becomes 5.2. Very easy, and I'll leave you to carry on and do those ones in your own time. If you don't have access to the sheet straight away, you can just pause the video and write down the questions for yourself. But these sheets are available on Uncle Dave's free teaching resources if you want to access them. Now, the little words here say, it's all very nice, but what if you have more than 1/10? It's not a unit fraction. No worries, buddy. Just multiply it by the numerator. What do you mean? Well, let's have a look at this example. 3/10 of 40 is 12. Hey? Well, it's because 1/10 of 40 is 4, and then I've said that 4 times 3 equals 12. Now, if you have a look down here at this number line, it kind of explains that a little bit. So, if I had 3/10 here and I multiplied it by 4, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of 3. 4 sets of 3 is 12. So I'd have 12/10ths down there. It works the same way, right? So if the number is larger to start with, we end up with whole numbers rather than decimals, but it works in exactly the same fashion, right? So that's what the number line down there tries to explain. Anyway, let's talk. Let's try one for ourselves and see how we go. What is 1/10 of 50? Well, that is very easy. We know it is 5. So if we know 1/10 of 50 is 5, 3/10 of 50 must be 3 times 5. That would be 9,172. Oh, no, hang on, it's 15. I always get those two muddled. 15. Not bad, right? Okay, well, how about one down here that's a little bit juicier? What is 1/10 of 120? Cover the 0. Easy, 12, right? So 7/10 of 120 would be 7 times 12. Ooh, do you remember that from your times tables? Feels like about 84 to me. How would you work it out if you couldn't quite remember, right? Well, this is what I do in my head. I go, well, 7 times 10 is 70, 7 times 2 is 14, 70 plus 14 is 84. If it gets stuck. But I've got to say, it's a lot easier if you can just remember your times tables. That's what we keep reinforcing here. So I will leave you to have a go on those ones by yourselves, guys. Give it your best shot. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Keep trying.